Hey, get everything going here on our wonderful Tuesday morning. So excited to see everybody. Look at everybody jumping in here. Hope it's a great day for you. I know it's wonderful to see everybody. This is our opportunity network. Carolyn, how are you?
Well, it's two in Boston, and that's about all I can tell you.
All right. Sounds a little chilly. Awesome. Well, it's good to see everybody here. I see Dave. Good to see you, Dave. Dave, you got any events coming up?
Nothing in the immediate time frame. Races are starting to gear up. Multi-GP. So I guess this might be the build season next couple weeks.
There we go. It's always good to take time out for that, isn't it?
Right.
Awesome. Roseanne, hi, good to see you. I know you have a lot on your plate right now, gearing up for the Palm Springs Drone Fest. How's that going?
I'm just trying to help Skip. He's buried. He just keeps giving me stuff to try and help him, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm just so excited. The expo sounds like it's really coming together, and I am excited to see our bracket competition for FIDA for all the countries that are coming to Palm Springs to compete. It's everyone's going to get to see what I saw when I went to Korea last year, and it's just so fun. It's just amazing. Getting a lot of local. I heard we had the PD drone department. I think the local is coming out. We're going to have some really cool stuff, so I'm excited.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, feel free to put a link into the chat, share it with others. If anybody has any other events or anything coming up that you wanted to share, feel free to put that into our chat as well. We are here about networking. Renee, man, I haven't seen you in a long time. Awesome. So we're about networking. Oh, look, here comes Skip too, and Vic. Wow. Hang on one second. Let's let a couple more people in here. Give it a minute. But put your information into the chat because we're about networking and we want to make sure that we connect and we have an opportunity to meet and network with people all across the globe right now. Hi, Skip. Hi, Vic. Good to see everybody. I know everybody's excited to be here for Kyle, right? Hi, Sharon. Hey, good to see everybody. Look at everybody showing up to say hello to Kyle and learn about simulators and drone training. This is exciting. It's a great day. Excited to have Kyle here with us today. So with that, I am just going to segue over and get this ball rolling and hold on a couple more people into the Zoom for a sec here, and then we will bump over, and I'm excited to have Kyle Bishop with us today. So you may know him from many of the shows that he has been to, where he is showing the drone simulator with Little Arm Studio or Zephyr Drone Simulator. And it's exciting to have him here today because we know that drone training is so important. And I put out a little quip out there, and I think it's kind of funny because I always say, where's the one place that you want to crash a drone? It would definitely be in a simulator. So training is so key, and Kyle's here to share with us a little bit about what kind of training options that he has. So Kyle, thank you very much. I am going to make you spotlight for everyone.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Desi. I can go ahead and get my screen share going.
So
Just want to.
while, there we
Okay.
go. Go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead. Well, let's use that time to.
So while he's doing that, we also want it to be engaging. We hope to hear from you. Kyle has some questions and some feedback that he would like from you because we do want this to be engaging today. All right. We're
Yeah,
good to go.
happy to keep it conversational. And so if you have questions or input on anything, feel free to jump in. I know there's a lot of other subject matter experts in the room and people who have a lot of experience with training and flying and all that. So I'd love to hear from y'all as we go. Yeah, focus of this is just a closer look at how training is going in the industry, you know, what the requirements are, and then a big focus on what's coming because it's changing incredibly fast. I did a similar talk about 5 years ago for Coffee Connection, and I went and looked at my PowerPoint for that, and it's crazy to see the certain things that have not changed, and then lots of things that have evolved an insane amount. So just going to cover some of the basics and the background of who I am and what we do. But I'm going to not, this isn't going to be like a sales pitch for our product or anything, more about the subject and everything. And yeah, hopefully everyone learned something new today, including me. So a little bit of a background, graduated from George Mason University with a computer game design degree, so software development and all that kind of fun stuff. That led us to making an incident command simulation tool for fire and rescue with Fairfax County. And that was kind of like, we called it Call of Duty for firefighters. It was just meant to train, you know, an active house fire and how to get through that, how to communicate, and do that with minimal risk to people and property. And then that led us to the drone market. Through some of those trade shows, we ended up meeting people who were using drones for public safety. Back then, it was pretty rare for public safety to be using UAS, and that's changed a lot, especially in the last few years. But we saw the state of training and saw an opportunity, so we started developing Zephyr Drone Simulator. So who am I? I'm the CEO of Little Arm Studios. We've been running the business, like I mentioned, since 2012. There's a picture on the left there where that was our first office. We crammed like 6 people into a little one-person office and just made our way developing games and software and all that. Been on a bunch of panels for, you know, training in the industry, just in a variety of ways in public safety especially. And then received the Distinguished Alumni Award 2 years ago for what we're doing with the company. So quick kind of overview, since some of this can be used in our discussions. On the commercial aviation side, there's a lot of training that goes into it. Do UAS operators need this much training? Probably not. But they are sharing the same airspace as crewed aviation. So there's certain principles that you can, you know, learn and pull from. So there's probably people who know a lot more about this or have even gone through this kind of training than me. So feel free to throw anything in if I miss anything. But the basics from what I understand are they'll go through like a ground school, some simulated flight training. Eventually they'll do check rides as part of that. And then you go into, after you've done the personal side of things, and you go into the commercial pilot license, which has a lot deeper requirements, and then including 1,500 hours of flight time, instrument rating, multi-engine rating, and then your type rating for the specific aircraft you're going to be flying. So it takes a lot more there to be commercially certified. Comparison with UAS, that's just a UAS flying an inspection. We don't need nearly as much training right now. It's just the FAA test for most operations. Again, no hands-on skills, which is, I think, is a bad thing. And it's something that was brought up in the presentation 5 years ago that I can't believe hasn't changed. A lot of other countries like Canada and Australia have flight requirements, so hands-on skills to show you actually know how to fly the system. But yeah, kind of like driving without a driver's license, which is crazy. Knowledge test is lighter. It still has airspace rules and all of that, but you do have to know some of that. And then generally speaking, no instrument or ground station tests. I think there are some instrumentation on the 107, if I remember correctly, but nothing as deep as airlines. So kind of the evolution stages of training from at least my perspective. You know, in the beginning, 2013 and before, even into probably 2020, most of it was manual flight. You're just flying, you know, with a controller, with the sticks. In more recent times, we've had a lot more of the assisted flights, so obstacle avoidance, flying with waypoints and things like that, where you kind of interject input. And then last few years, full automation has become, you know, even more dominant. Things like the Skydio and Parrot. And those are flown through systems like, for example, if you all are familiar with drone sense, you can control multiple systems at once. Swarm could also be one to many instead of like a swarm itself, using ground control stations to fly remotely, completely away from the drone beyond visual line of sight. So just some specifics on each of those. Again, just framing kind of what the stages are so that we can have a more productive conversation, hopefully. Manual flight control is all about, the muscle memory, building the thumb and stick skill, being able to handle, stressful situations without panicking. I crashed a drone because I basically did that once in the early days of our company. We were doing a flight test with an Inspire 2, and I could have saved the drone if I literally just pulled down on the left stick for a half second, but I like froze up and just crashed it into a tree. So a tree branch. And it's also focused on flying specific models with different payloads, different systems. Can be focused on emergency procedures as well, usually line of sight operation and using the UAS to collect good data, which can be things like imagery, or it could be things like scans and all that too. Training focus for assisted flight control is, again, a lot of this is pretty much the same, but really with an added factor becomes the user interface. So you're just training for how do I, use the system to input the waypoints and make sure that it's flying at the right altitude and not flying in improper zones and all of that. Full automation has a lot of changes. So, if someone is flying fully automated, a lot of the times people don't care anymore about the thumb skills. There's some people advocating for certain things that I'll get to later or in a minute or two. But it's flying one to many. You can take control of different systems that are all up in the air, sometimes in different locations or different viewpoints, things like that. A lot of it is training with those interfaces. So like being able to train with a ground control station, being able to train, when I click this button, what happens, or getting to the right option quickly so that you're not scrambling to find it. Big thing that's been more of a talk lately is the cognitive load. So if you're flying, 20 different systems at once, how does your brain track each of those systems? How are you able to, discern the information you need to discern? Is that something that AI and machine learning can help with? How much do you want to trust that? All those kinds of things. Training communication has become more important with that because you're coordinating between different people at different locations. For example, in a fire scene, you might have multiple systems looking at a house that's on fire. And then you'll have to convey that information effectively to the rest of the people on the ground on site. Emergencies procedures are still important. That's going to be a subject that I want to talk about with everyone too. And taking over, again, people can use these systems to take over a specific unit and then put it where they want to put it or collect specific information. Generally, this is used for BV loss, but there are use cases where you're flying multiple systems automated in person as well. And then a question, we don't have to answer it now, but if you want to, you can. Do you care about the stick skills when you're looking at automation? How important is that to you? Just something to think about. So our place in training, we use the simulation kind of as a supplemental tool. We don't expect simulation to ever replace actual flight, hands-on flight. I think might be kind of naive to think it would, just because there's so many factors that simulation will never account for. But it can help you get a lot of time on the sticks. It can help you get a lot of time in those interfaces and everything without the risk of crashing, without the battery life, without worrying about airspace, all that kind of stuff. We've worked a lot with STEM camps, STEM education. We're doing a lot with public safety, now the DoD, DHS. So using it kind of all over the place. And we've even been working with public safety for the NIST open lane tests with the buckets. And you can actually get credentials through our software if you're familiar with that test for public safety specifically. And we've even been working with some of the educators in the room on their programs. I think Skip uses our software. We have a few case studies done. I'm not going to play the video or anything, but it's in here if we either share the slides or if you'd like to go watch it, it's on our company YouTube. But this is Jason Day talking about how they use our simulation. They've trained over, I think, 400 operators a year for their program and saved them a lot of time, resources, all that kind of good stuff, and really speeds up their training process. Said I wasn't going to play.
Hey, Kyle.
Yep.
Are you open to taking an interruption, or do you
Yeah,
want to?
absolutely.
Okay. This is Dave Messina, FPV Freedom Coalition, and focus on recreational. So um, as I'm sure Vic is waiting for me to speak up when you said a move toward the slide where you said toward full automation, and then our stick skills required. You can imagine as someone wedded to first-person view and recreational, I'm jumping out of my seat. I think, obviously, I think it's critical. I'd suggest that FPV has a place in the commercial and military applications, which might be, you might be missing a trick if we contemplate that the future is exclusively fully autonomous.
Mhm.
And I'd assert that stick skills are critically important when you're flying FPV in either a military engagement or any number of inspection operations or um, ag spray or other areas. And I'm also thinking you jumped to educating public safety and commercial. And to me, offering a link to what you're doing to kids, make it simple, give them some simple FPV and a school-based STEM capability is a wonderful stepping stone to programs like yours. So
Thank you.
maybe not much of a question, but freaking out a little bit about the lack of focus on FPV.
No worries. I appreciate it. And I actually have a very similar point of view on that. But didn't want to weigh in too strong on it. But yeah. Awesome. Does
So
anyone else
are
want
you
to add
seeing
anything?
a question then on, do you see, so we are, so we spend a lot of time with multi-GP, we spend a lot of
Mhm.
time with freestyle pilots. We're trying to figure out what's a sensible way to do testing, and physical is difficult from a cost and logistics perspective. Tests with simulators are possible. Do you see that as a potential way to go to testing? In our discussions with the FAA at the BVLOS ARC, they completely dismissed, simulator, you never know who's there, you can't, the securities, so they just brushed it aside.
Yeah. Yeah, we've actually done our best to try and work with the FAA to kind of either, add some physical flight requirements, simulated flight requirements just to show competency. But those talks haven't really gone anywhere. But what we've done on the public safety side with the BPERP, so APSA has the basic proficiency, something remote pilot, or I can't remember the acronym. But it's a credential that they use to show a level of aptitude using the NIST open lane test. And so there's actually like it's a more involved procedure than just you go and fly on the sim and then they look at a record and then you get it. You have to be on camera, you have to show your ID. They have to be able to show the controller that they're actually like flying, and then we have the on-screen sticks and everything so that they can the proctor who then reviews the footage and data can see that like they were actually doing those movements and everything. So it adds a level of making sure that they're who they say they are and what they're doing and all that. So it's a little bit more involved, unfortunately, than just like checking a report, but I think that's necessary to make sure that people are actually doing that, not cheating. So I'm sure people would do that, at least some. Yeah.
I think that's excellent. And other countries, when you're testing, they are monitoring every move you're making and they're
Yeah.
watching your computer, they're watching you. And so that's an excellent way to be able to monitor, is that person really there learning that skill set and completing that mission? And there, I know it opens up a whole new world when we start to talk about the future and, the possible training that we can get. Then we can dive into part 108
Mhm.
and what are those requirements that could be vital to going to that next step. And so this is phenomenal. It's an excellent way to get that training.
Did I fully answer your question too? Okay, cool. Thank you guys. This slide is actually one from last time I did this. I went ahead and pulled it because I think it's still relevant. Some of the best practices that we've seen are so I grew up playing video games. I was like 6 years old when I started playing. So how the sticks are, at least in mode 2, is completely backwards for me. So a lot of kids as well, or teenagers or young adults or whoever, if they come from a gaming background, the sticks are going to feel backwards to them. So it's going to take them some time to build the muscle memory to do that. One thing that I found that helps me personally is I switch when I'm flying a UAS system. That's redundant, but when I fly UAS, I do the pinch method on the sticks, so that it's kind of like a different muscle memory than just holding a controller normally, like gaming. And that helps my brain disconnect the two and like be able to run them smoothly. So that's one tip that we've seen using it, giving them some time to just fly around, not worry about them being uh, proficient right in the beginning. Like a lot of times when we do the STEM camps, we'll just say, go fly around for 15 minutes, like try to think about what your UAS is doing with your movements. And like we've had them try to isolate movements, like only go one direction at a time on a stick, because a lot of the time they'll just, do both sticks forward, both sticks back, and they don't really understand what they're doing. So getting them to like do one stick input at a time to see how it reacts has really been a, a big change for that. It helps build that muscle memory. Let's see. Catering to the age group you're working with can be pretty important. There's a lot of STEM camps or groups, STEM groups doing coding. That's a great way to kind of add some extra depth to it. You could ask the students about, like what are they interested in? If they're interested in like public safety, you could show some footage of how UAS are used to, track perpetrators or fires or search and rescue. If they're interested in sports, you can use a system to, uh, track a player in a football game or something, or riding a bike, anything like that, just to get them more
Kyle,
engaged. And okay,
what's your advice on coding? Well, some of the areas that we are, instead of coding, it's more of a parameterization or working in depth with the various flight control software platforms, Betaflight,
hmm
iNav, and the most sophisticated ArduPilot.
hmm
And so that to us is a great way to get kids engaged and involved with the start of coding,
hmm
but not platforms like let's create an Arduino
right.
running some code, or a Raspberry Pi with Python. Do you have a direction that you like to go with kids in coding?
Yeah. So for me personally, uh, I started college as a CS major, and I hadn't done any programming prior to that whatsoever. And the instructors taught the classes as if you already had like 5 years of experience programming. You knew what everything was. I didn't know what an
Sure.
IDE was, and that was the most confusing thing in the world for me, because nobody explained it, and it was just really hard to figure all of that out. So, um, I do think it's great to introduce them to things that are basically like visual scripting, because it's cutting out a lot of the like things that can cause problems, like I forgot a comma here, and they don't have to worry about that kind of stuff in the beginning. So they're learning the logic first before they have to
Yep.
go and actually write the code, and I think that's absolutely
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Um, and because that can also then evolve into actual coding if they enjoy it or want to go deeper. Um, yeah, I do think it's a good approach. Like they're able to then see the results immediately. That's one thing where like programming clicked a lot with me was the game development aspect. Because I could go hit a button, see immediately what I had just programmed, if it works, what's wrong with it, what's working well. I can move the character around, blah blah blah. And you can do the same thing with the drone. So like you can, add that code or that logic and then go see what the drone does from what you added. It's kind of like a cool way to do it for them too. They get excited about it and all that. So I'm sure you've experienced that.
Absolutely, yeah. Feedback, yeah, a feedback and control mechanism that's a nice tight loop, so the kids can like,
Yeah.
that's what changed, or wow, it won't fly now.
Yep.
What did I break? Yeah. And your notion of visual scripting instead of something that's a compiled piece of code. Yeah, I learned on Fortran, so that goes back a
Yeah.
couple years. So I completely, and now I'm playing with Python. So yeah,
Yeah.
I get it, and I think that's a smart piece of advice.
Awesome. Yeah, and the last thing on this page would just be partner up with groups. We've seen a lot of success with people who work with other groups, especially ones that complement their skills. There's a lot of people in the drone industry trying to do absolutely everything, and usually it makes them, be a jack of all trades, master of none. So find groups that fill those gaps. There's a lot of people, especially in like the education space, willing to collaborate. We've been a lot of really great people who just, want everything to be successful and want everything to be good. So team up with them. And then,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
could teaming up with people. Pardon me for jumping in again.
there you go.
We've had a number of retired engineers contact us and tell us that they're working with their local schools and what can we do to work with them. And it's ideal. So the school
Yeah,
gets a subject matter expert added to their STEM program, and retired engineers get to give back. So it's
awesome.
very
That's great.
cool way to go.
Yeah. And then we have some, thank you again. And then we have some new tips from past 5 years or so that we didn't bring up last time. So focusing on fundamentals can be huge. A lot of people want to go in and do the really flashy, cool, fun, exciting stuff, especially in FPV, because you get some really powerful systems and you can do some really cool flying, like through obstacles and flips and everything. But if they don't have those fundamental skills down, again, when you get into a stressful situation, your brain's going to freeze and then you're just going to wreck the drone. So getting strong fundamental skills like control of the system. We like to tell students to think of the sticks as kind of like a car gas pedal and brake. It's pressure sensitive. It's not an on or off thing. Because a lot of them will come on and just slam the sticks and, have very little control of the drone, even though they learn very fast. But yeah, we've seen a lot of people with big egos. So we try to get people to leave the ego at the door. Understand that everyone's learning, everyone's trying to grow a skill set. When you're flying, especially the physical systems, keeping ego in check can help keep you from crashing and breaking laws and doing stupid things and all that. I think I already mentioned that.
I'd add one, which is embrace crashing.
Yeah, especially in the sim. But yeah, we definitely, that's part of why we give them the like 10 to 30 minutes usually to just fly around, because they'll crash. They'll get a lot of like the silliness out if they're younger, especially, and then they'll be able to focus up more and focus on getting better instead of just look what happens when I crash the drone 12 times in a row and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And
So in the
then,
chat, I asked the question about who's working in STEM. I know a lot of familiar faces here, and so they are working in STEM. And there was one comment in here from Tawny that she could definitely use some additional community partnerships and support for local programs. So I thought maybe we could elaborate a little bit on that. If Tawny, if you wanted to step in, Kyle, if you have some suggestions, maybe utilizing some of the program that you have here, collaborate that way. Tawny, did you want to open the mic up?
Yeah, sure. Hi, hello, hello. Good afternoon, or good morning. It's been a long morning already. Obviously we have here at our adult school, we do some workshops, and we've got clubs set up to encourage those who are open to going into STEM education, whether it be engineering, programming. We do drone soccer. We've got build sessions that we set up, which is great. Our adult teams are very self-sufficient because they can go out and reach and, find the experts that they need to help with their coding and everything else. However, we're also working with local schools that are partnering with the Parks and Recs department, and it would be beneficial for them to have resources as well in the community. It's something they've never done before. They don't have community experts coming in for their basketball camps, but I'm trying to encourage them to reach out and, establish even volunteer rotations for local companies in different STEM-based fields to come in and assist with their workshops. So open to any suggestions on, what's worked for someone else, to make those partnerships happen. Aside from providing them a list of, there's like 300 different companies within a 5-mile radius that potentially they could work with. But what is a system, I guess, that's worked so that they understand what they're asking for? Because right now, what they're used to asking for is money, and that doesn't always work. Just somebody to pay for their program. Well, they don't benefit fully from getting donations. What they need is actual people coming in with the engineering, math, science skills, even, mechanical skills that could do demonstrations. At least that's my thought.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. I have some thoughts, but if anyone wanted to weigh in too, I'm happy to let them do that.
All right, go ahead, Kyle.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so we haven't set up anything like that, but we've participated in quite a few STEM camps and work pretty closely with George Hinckley, who puts that camp on, and some of the other ones. And he's been pretty successful with just reaching out to industry folks and finding people who were either interested in volunteering time, like that's what we do. And some of the other companies have kind of like education STEM programs. Sometimes it's more focused on benefiting the business, like Skydio, for example, they have their outreach program. Point of the outreach program is kind of to put Skydio in people's hands and get people to buy the products. But that was also when they were more focused on the commercial market. But a lot of these companies do have programs where they can like send people out to help with these events, be subject matter experts. George also brought in a lot of public safety folks for each of those events. So like the local departments that have UAS programs or things like that, like they're happy to come in and work with the kids and teach them how to fly and that kind of stuff. Mostly applies specifically to the UAS industry, not the other STEM programs, but you might also be able to find similar people doing those things. Like I think he even found someone with aerospace engineering who comes and does a talk about that and like flight dynamics and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if he pays her or if it's volunteer thing, but you might be able to find other people just interested in helping out with that kind of stuff as well. Since I haven't done that outreach, I can't give you like specifics on the best way to do it, but we just like he reached out to us and we were interested and participated and worked with him on the camp. So
Awesome. Awesome. And like David mentioned, bringing in the engineers and such like that, expanding it out. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Don't forget, if you have any comments or questions, please put them into the chat because we do want to have that feedback.
Yep. And this is my last talking slide, so we can I'll stop throwing information at you, but wanted to kind of set the stage for conversation and everything. Just a few last things we've kind of learned. Training on the actual operational procedures can be good. In STEM education, that's probably not going to be as important as public safety, DoD, that kind of stuff. But putting them through the things they're going to be doing in the field, practicing the communication will be important. Make it fun. Gamifying things is great. We've seen that in public safety, DoD with the Air Force. Like we have people who with public safety want to fly. They're challenging each other to do better, and they're doing that on their own time. They're not even doing it as part of their job in many cases. So if you can make it fun and engaging, you're going to get better operators just straight out of that. If you can practice on the interface and devices you use, not necessarily in simulation, but even the real physical thing, you know, even if you're not going to fly, you can open up the app on your phone, play around with the buttons, see what they do, that kind of stuff. And then again, training for stress and cognitive load, because I think that's going to become bigger and bigger as things get more complicated. You have more hazards. There's aircraft in the sky. There's birds of prey that want to take down the system. There's other people flying. What happens when you get uh, my only other crash and second crash was with a system that decided to do the toilet bowl effect. It lost GPS and it was over my friend's wedding tent, and it just started doing spinning over the wedding tent. That was a very stressful time. But luckily ended up being able to get it to crash into a tree instead of into the wedding stuff, through the kind of experience with that. But um, being able to handle the situations can, keep people from getting harmed. Sometimes you can save the equipment. If you're using like a hexacopter, you can actually land them if a prop goes out in some cases. It's difficult, but doable. So training for all of those kind of like stressors that can make you do better in difficult situations. Oh, one final note on that. One big thing that we've seen as a really important training piece with the simulation, a lot of times it's easy for students, especially younger ones, to get a perfect score on a module or do like a perfect flight. But a lot of the time, if you ask them to repeat that same thing in a safe manner, they'll either crash the drone or things like that. So what we like to do is when we go to sort of like a testing phase, we'll have them fly a module or a test or something like that multiple times without crashing, and like say complete it 3 times with a certain time in a row. If you complete it 3 times without crashing with a slower time, that's better than completing it with any crashes at all. So like we'll end up scoring the students. Sometimes they get prizes, like we've even given away a drone or software license or things like that. But I would encourage any competitions or grading you do to focus on, safe flights. Like if your goal is, be the best FPV pilot, maybe safety isn't the first and foremost. If they're trying to fly through the course fast, but teaching those fundamentals and control, I think, is a really important thing.
I
And
agree.
yeah, so from here, mostly just wanted to keep it conversational, hear from you all. It took a little longer than I was expecting, but
I had a question. Kyle, have you considered adding a subset of racing to your curricula so that you really load up that cognitive load and add some super stressors? My own experience is once you learn how to race, you then, if you're then going to fly a video drone, it's like everything is in slow motion and you've got lots of time to respond.
yeah. Yeah, in the beginning of our simulation, like back in 2016, we actually had like acro mode and being able to race in the sim. But it kept leading to a lot of physics bugs, and we found that people weren't buying our sim for racing, like they were just going to lift off and a DRL and all those kinds of things. So we ended up cutting it for a while. But we have done some developments in the last year that will basically allow us to re-add it. That'll solve all those physics issues. So that should be coming in the near future. Like we have throttle curves and expo rates and all that kind of stuff in the sim now too. So it's hopefully coming back. And again, the STEM education side, the kids absolutely love doing those things. So I think that'll be good there as well.
Good.
They do. The kids love when they get that FPV, that
Yeah.
visual. They just absolutely thrive on that. And they love that. And they love that coding side of things as well. So those are two key important points that I know they really thrive on. And back to the FPV side of things, it just makes you really be a quick thinker. When we're talking about flying through things really fast, you do have to think fast. And, there's a lot of FAA acronyms, decide, and all of those. How do you handle an emergency situation? And it does make you react quickly. And having opportunities like this to be able to learn an emergency situation, what am I going to do quickly? It's excellent, excellent training. Somebody in here wants one of those mugs. I
I
love
just
it.
found that online, but I thought it was pretty great.
Oh, there you go. There's a market right there.
Yeah.
And then Vic made the comment about the new FAFO. Just ask Philly Mike. They who hit the super scooper. Oh, and the guy who hit the super scooper. And flew in the Rams game. Oh yes, look at there,
Yeah.
or Ravens game. Sorry. Yeah, there's, and that brings up a good point, is we are starting to see enforcement, which the more we
Yeah.
get that out there, the better we are going to be. That is for sure. STEM for adults would be fun. Have the kids under teacher supervision, teaching adults. Excellent. Yes, I love that. A lot of good comments in here. So, Kyle, is there anything that you would like to ask the audience, maybe to have them give you some tips and ideas of something that you see moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely don't have to stay on these topics. So if you have other things you want to either, add or ask about, I'm happy to. But I was curious about best practices. That was a really interesting one too for the having the students teach the adults. That'd be great. But there's been a lot of talk about how AI and automation are going to affect training. So I'd love to, see what people think on that. I was at a UAS training event for the Air Force a couple weeks ago. And there was somebody there who said, I can make someone proficient from 0 to proficient within under 5 minutes. And I was like, I strongly disagree. But I think that's just defining a different level of proficiency. Like to me, being proficient doesn't mean you can get the drone in the air and point at things. That's not proficiency to me. Uh, so that's one thing that can also be defined a little bit as, what level of proficiency do people need to learn, the 6 skills like Dave mentioned. I strongly agree as well. I think that having those foundational skills is very important. I'm probably biased because of the training side of things, but I don't, with crewed aviation, they don't go up. Most of the flights are automated, but they don't rely on it. They know how to fly it. If something goes wrong, if a system fails, AI and automation fail. It's going to keep failing. It's never going to be perfect. It's software. Bugs happen. It's just something that is how software is. So yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now. That's challenge.
We would love to hear from you. What are some of your thoughts? What do you think? Do you think more of this practical flight assessment should be implemented? Learning those skill sets are key. And a lot of people mentioned in our chat that yes, there needs to be stick skills involved. We are seeing more and more automation. So what happens when that fails, right? So we'd love to hear from you. And Sheila just brought up a really good point for me. I'm going to drop the slide deck down and bring back the view for everybody. Good point. Hello, everybody. I love it. Awesome. So what are your thoughts? This is a great opportunity to just have conversation about, building the future of safety within the drone environment. One of the things that I find is so important, you mentioned the bucket system. I am a big fan of that bucket system, and I can't tell you how many times I have seen professional pilots come in, and I can fly anything anywhere, but you ask them to dial it in under precision and time frame, and they can't do it, and they're not smooth. And so I am a big fan. All right, looks like Sam Scully has her hand up. Go ahead, Sam and Mike. Good to see you.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Kyle. Kyle, my question is, I'm currently, excuse me, on a volunteer project for the fires in the Palisades. And I've typically been taking a VO up there with me because basically I'm a member of the American Legion there. And we're grateful that the Legion didn't get burned down, but they volunteered their drone pilots like me to help the homeowners. So now as I listened to your conversation this morning, instead of me taking in addition to me taking my VO, I'm thinking that I should also take a student with me. And if I did want to take a student, would my approach be to contact the STEM office of that school? Or what would you suggest? How do I get a body from one of these schools to assist me and for them to learn and train them on, what we're doing.
Yeah, there's probably people with more experience on the education side, but we've worked with some schools on kind of similar things. Like a lot of the schools, they have their procedures you have to go through and documents to sign and stuff, kind of like internships. So it might be something where you need to have like a formal agreement to legally do that without liability and that kind of stuff. So I'd definitely go through those procedures unless you like personally know them. But I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on that.
Liability city, Sam. Schlep the parent with you. If you're planning on bringing the kid, just bring the parent. Just that'll alleviate a lot. But don't put them in your own car. Don't do any of that.
Well, and I think if we're talking students, even for my adult students, before we go out and fly, the district requires them to be, waivered and hold harmless agreements and everything else. I would not, again, minors, definitely not. You're taking them into already a risky environment. But maybe if you have, college students or, young adult students that are of interest that are able to sign off on themselves, but I wouldn't recommend you do that without the right paperwork in place.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yep, thank you, Sam.
Awesome. Carolyn, you had something.
Hi, Kyle. Carolyn from MassDOT. How are you? Thank you
Good.
so much for the Little Arm Studio practicality. We are using that with our bridge team, our highway team, going on to the Department of Recreation and Conservation team. My question was, are you going to add more, he had the little modules with the different simulation environments. The bridge guys really liked your bridges. Thank you for that. The Department of Recreation and Conservation would like something over water, and the highway teams would like some rocks falling onto the road.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to constantly add new things. It's been a little bit of a challenge. Like we have a few AFWorks contracts that are basically development contracts, so we've been required to develop specific things for them. And it's kind of put a lot of things on the back burner. But we've been finishing up 2 of those, and we have some good features that are coming for everyone, as well as building out some of those new scenarios. But that's something I can talk to our team about as well. Like we're adding search and rescue with thermal imaging, things like that. We do have one scenario that's got water, the island, if you want to check that one out. It's got some, I wouldn't say the physics of the water and stuff are good, but you can at least do some maritime focused stuff. There's like an island scenario with a bunch of things on the island. And we'll look into the rocks on a road or other hazards and things too.
Well, falling rocks from side roads would be great.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
Connie, I see your hand up.
I did. I had my hand up from earlier, but I was just going to follow up on, what you're discussing as far as like practical skills and the muscle memory and how to really use the simulators. And while, developing that in kind of a racing environment, it's fun and the kids love it. You're absolutely right that I'll take pilots with experience. They're like, yeah, no, I know how to fly. And you give them a 20 by 20 or even a 10 by 10 space and ask them to maneuver in that space. And they cannot do it because they don't have as much control as they thought they did, right? They're used to just going fast and getting where they want to go and moving the drone in different directions. But those kinds of, tactical maneuvers are critical when the AI or the programming does go wrong and they have to land, in an emergency situation. So that's why I do appreciate having the simulations, because it is a challenge. Some of those scenarios that you've got built into the system, they're almost frustratingly specific as to where exactly you need to be. And with a heavy hand, it's good training for students to dial that in.
Yeah, thank you. And on that note, it's sort of a tooting our own horn, but forgive me for that. But Bo from our team who handles marketing and social media and everything had never flown before. And he participated in one of the BPERP tests. He drove down to North Carolina, I think, to participate in that. And he had only flown in the simulation for, I think, maybe like 20 to 30 hours. And he was with people who had been flying for literal years. And he won the Top Gun through all of them, like completed the test fastest and the most accurate just from flying the simulation. So I think that speaks to your point, Tanya, about, like, and it's what I was talking about with the ego earlier too, is a lot of people come in thinking that, like, they're the best operator, and that just because they've put it up in the air and, captured their dog walking or something. But it's really, you got to pull that ego back and get them to see, like, can you actually control this? Can you actually accomplish a specific task? And so I think it's a good point. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So Dave, I see your hand up, but before we segue over to your question, let me make a comment of something we saw in the chat. This came in from LinkedIn, from Roberto, and he says, "Hi, thank you. I'm developing a research and ArcGIS app and the drone and vessel and marine environment and the Guardians. Can you include my country, Colombia?" And he put in there a link for you as well, Kyle. All right. So I want to make sure that if you're on LinkedIn, we're able to bring in some of the questions as well.
Okay. Awesome.
And then I see something, Sheila lived in Alaska. Immediately thought about the bears, dealing with them, the quite focused flying around them, and usually you can smell them coming. Okay, there you go. There's a unique perspective. Yeah. All right, Dave, you had, and I know we're just kind of running up towards the top of the hour there, but Dave, you had another.
Make it real quick. I was wondering, Kyle, if you had thought about adjacent contexts to find potential people for your classes. In our space, we find music and competitive sports as a general that are cohorts that are high percentage of FPV, and an incredible number of skateboard enthusiasts love FPV. So thinking about adjacent contexts.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess I haven't looked too deeply into it, I will say, but there's definitely a lot of the active sports, like Skydio and stuff, were advertising mountain biking and skiing and a lot of those kinds of things where you can do the auto follows and all that. But we've definitely, as a business, been more focused on the commercial side of the industry. So working with like education, public safety, all that. But we do have like the hobbyist package and stuff. But
that's why I was thinking about musicians. But all the things that you think about with coding and perseverance there and training, etc., are musicians.
Nice. Yeah. That's a good point.
Options. Okay. So I also want to mention that in the chat, we have to make sure that we mention this one is Skip Fredericks, and he has a link in there for the cinematic training modules, which is awesome. So he put a link in there for that as well. And then Kyle just put up his contact information. I encourage you to take a screenshot of that. And I did also put it into the chat. I put in his email, and I put in the link to the website or the LinkedIn as well. So there's some ways to get a hold of him there. And so Vic just posted, if you have any questions about legislation, he is definitely the place to go right there. So you'll want to make sure that you save the chat today. There has been excellent information, a lot of good contacts made today. And so I encourage you to save the chat, and there's the 3 dots. You'll find those, and the top heading that you get there is save the chat. You'll have a lot of good information, a lot of good resources here today. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been awesome. Love connecting, love hearing what you're doing, and look forward to seeing you at future shows. And
yeah, thank you for having me back. Hopefully it was helpful for everyone.
Oh, yes, it was. Very much so. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. We have a list of people coming up that are amazing speakers. So, all right. Have a great day.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. This was great. And we have some questions from LinkedIn that I'll shoot over to you to answer through LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, you wanted to talk?